heavy crisis at Chelsea, despite an almost complete overhaul and the arrival of a new manager. The Blues have been following the exact same script as last season. At this moment, Chelsea is languishing near the bottom of the Premier League table and simply can't manage to win games. In this video, you'll understand what has happened to the team that has spent the most in the transfer market and finds itself in this situation. I'll show you that right now, after the intro. We'll delve into this video to comprehend how a team like Chelsea, with such investment, is now facing a crisis and being a laughingstock in the Premier League, struggling to defeat any opponent. It's important to remember one thing for this season. Chelsea underwent a major overhaul. The previous season was not a good one for Chelsea either. Many of the problems we are currently seeing in the team were already happening. However, after the overhaul, it seems that things got worse because Chelsea, whether they wanted it or not, ended up releasing many players who had a history with the club. They were experienced players, they were successful players. So you see some names that left, like Kanté, Courtois, Hazard. And when you lose that many players who already have a history with the club and are experienced, you need to go to the market and bring in compatible players. But Chelsea let go of a lot of experienced and successful players and brought in only young players, individuals who had never played at the high level of European football in such a competitive league like the Premier League. So they already complicated things on their own, shooting themselves in the foot because the club spent €462 million on reinforcements in this window. That's in reinforcements, but despite the enormous amount, Chelsea didn't bring in any star player or any player who would make the team win games. It wasn't an investment made only in promises, only in young players that nobody even knows will actually succeed. Remember that, in addition to the €462 million spent in just this last window, in the previous season, Chelsea had already spent €601 million on reinforcements. So we already have over €1 billion in reinforcements in the tenure of the American owner Toddy Boyle. And even with €1 billion in reinforcements, Chelsea still hasn't managed to assemble a minimally competitive team. Imagine €1 billion in the hands of Guardiola at Manchester City, €1 billion in the hands of Mikel Ortega at Arsenal. Certainly, they would bring in significant reinforcements, many quality names that would fit into the team's idea. Chelsea, despite the high investment, as I mentioned, today cannot field 11 players to compete head-to-head with City, Arsenal, Tottenham. On the contrary, Chelsea now passes this burden to teams that are theoretically considered much inferior to it in the league. I'm going to mention some examples of expensive signings by Chelsea that, in my opinion, were impulsive. These are players who have not yet lived up to expectations. The first example is the Ukrainian forward Mykola Matvienko. He was signed from Shakhtar Donetsk, but it seems like Chelsea primarily signed him to prevent him from going to Arsenal. So Chelsea went ahead and paid €100 million for him, a player who, as I mentioned, had been playing in Ukraine. It's hard to understand how you can pay such a hefty sum for a player who was in Ukraine. He arrived as a high-profile signing but has not scored a single goal for Chelsea so far. Another very similar case is that of the Ecuadorian midfielder Moises Caicedo. I'll be fair, he was playing well at Brighton. However, based on his performances, he shouldn't be the most expensive player in Premier League history. Chelsea went ahead and paid €133 million for him, essentially with the same intention, to prevent Caicedo from playing for Arsenal. In the end, Chelsea is doing Arsenal a favor because, in the end, Modric didn't play there, Caicedo didn't either, and I don't think they signed other notable players, and the team is currently performing poorly. In contrast, they are spending heavily and the team simply isn't functioning. Chelsea has a new manager for this season, an Argentine coach. It's worth noting that he is a manager who is quite familiar with the Premier League, having coached the Tottenham team for many years. So it's normal for there to be some initial fluctuations as the coach tries to find the ideal team. However, in Chelsea's case, this issue goes beyond just Pochettino's tenure. the team has been inconsistent since the last season, with Thomas Tuchel, Graham Potter, and Frank Lampard. This is not a recent problem. It dates back to when Roman Abramovich took over Chelsea. Indeed, Chelsea has been struggling significantly to win even at home. In the last 10 Premier League home games, they have suffered 5 defeats, drawn 4 times, and managed only 1 victory. This dismal performance has understandably frustrated the fans on social media. I'd like to hear your opinion now. In your view, who is to blame for Chelsea's ongoing crisis, which has persisted since last season? What can Chelsea do to try to resolve this issue? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to know what you think.